Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. This is Jesse with the Common Nerd, and if you haven't heard, Hollywood is on fire, ladies and gentlemen. We don't just mean their box office numbers or their ratings in the television shows. No, we mean that quite literally. If for some reason you've been living under a rock and you haven't heard about all of the LA fires that are going on, it's a very huge tragedy that's going on and is spreading wildly all over the place and is starting only now to get contained as some of the fires start to end up going down. So obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with all of those wonderful folks out there in California in the path of all this kind of stuff. I know there's been a lot of people that have evacuated. I know there's a lot of major Hollywood celebrities that have already lost their houses, including Paris Hilton, and it looks like James Woods and a few others out there. It's going to end up being a massive amount of large loss of, if nothing else, property for sure. And we all will know that the death count will eventually come in, and it's a tragedy. And the thing about it is it's a preventable tragedy, boys and girls, at least to the extent that the damage has gone this way. And guess what? As Hollywood is on fire, their own stars are not being quiet in any way, shape, or form, and they have no problem blasting the man responsible for this all, the California governor, Gavin Newsom. And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what we've got right here, because as you can see from the headline, it's not just one, it's not just a couple. James Wood is blasting the California governor, Gavin Newsom, and the mayor, Karen Bass. And if you watched any of the streams from our Dear Sweet film thread out there, Chris Gore has been absolutely bashing this woman as well. So it's not just a couple of these actors, it is a whole lot of common sense folks out there in Hollywood bashing them for all of this kind of stuff. And we've got Zachery Levi as well, our dear sweet Shazam star, going over there, who's been completely and totally based and been very open about his opinions for quite a while, is now accusing Gavin Newsom of being criminally negligent for everything that has been going on. And ladies and gentlemen, these guys make a lot of very good points, and it's always fun to watch Hollywood elites go out there and completely and totally bash the evil psychopath that is responsible for the current situation that this place finds itself in. And it is just a tragedy, and it's a good thing to see that people are calling out the people responsible for this and using their platforms to make sure that the world knows exactly what's going on out there in California. So we're going to check out these articles from fandompulse.substack, getting all the juicy details of what both these gentlemen have said about our dear sweet governor Gavin Newsom out there. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 1,500. We are on our way to 16, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Are you one of the folks out there in California? Have you been negatively affected by these fires? Do you have any friends or family out there that have been negatively affected? Is everybody out safe? Let us know what you have all about that, what's been going on in your experiences in the comment section down below. And do you agree with these Hollywood stars out here bashing Governor Newsom? Do you believe he's responsible for it, or do you believe there's another reason out there? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. All right. So from John F. Trent over at fandompulse.substack, and it's on both of them. So we'll start with James Woods, and then we'll jump over to Zachery Levi, because James Woods' comments aren't quite as long, but of course, he's being the quick-witted, vicious-minded man that he always is, doing an incredible job pushing back on all the little crazies out there. And then we'll jump into, of course, what Zachery Levi said in a very long interview over there. So it's going to be a little bit on this one. So and I love James Wood, too. Like, his Shark show was absolutely great. It was such a travesty that show got cut early, but hey, we all kind of know now why, that this guy gets cut. I mean, he was an executive producer on Oppenheimer out there, but because of the backlash against conservatives in Hollywood out there and anybody that disagrees with the cult overall, well, of course, he made sure that his name wasn't actually attached to it publicly until after the movie had come out, because he didn't want any kind of controversy surrounding that. But hey, guess what? He ain't going to hold two things back when it comes to Newsom. Actor James Woods, known for his role as Hades in Hercules and Sebastian Shark in Shark, blasted California Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass on the fires raging in Los Angeles. On CNN, Woods was emotional as he detailed how his neighbors' homes had gone up in fire. At one point, he shared that his 94-year-old neighbor, who suffers from dementia, had been left in his home. But fortunately, he was able to contact another neighbor. They located him, and he was evacuated an hour before his house burned down. That is insane. Woods also speculated his own house likely burned down. At 11:49 last night, all the smoke alarms in our houses alerted our phones that our house that we just renovated for 3 years and had just finally moved into about 3 months ago, all the smoke alarms are going off. Hardly a good sign. So I'm not sure. It wouldn't make any difference, because the whole street is burned down, even if you go back to your home. I mean, that is horrendous. That is absolutely horrendous. And after working on something for 3 years, only getting to enjoy it for 3 months, it's just horrible. And of course, all of the nasty little psychopaths out there, all the cultists, of course, cannot keep their mouths shut, because they have to use this. They have to use every single tragedy to push their agenda. After all, never let a good tragedy go to waste, after all, all, boys and girls. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And of course, they never will. So Lucifer tweets, oh, color us shocked there. I mean, literally, could you get any more on the nose with this? Hollywood is literally on fire, right? Like Sodom and Gomorrah level of fire for Hollywood. And then you have Lucifer out here tweeting. The irony of James Woods, known for his skepticism about climate change, losing his home to the very wildfires linked to climate change impacts in California is striking. Oh, really? Yes, it's climate change. It's man-made climate change. It's you know. God forbid, I don't know, you do any kind of like actual brush control, you clean up after yourself or any that kind of stuff. Oh, no, that simply can't happen. And of course, James Woods wasn't going to take this line down. The fire is not from climate change, you ignorant asshole. It's because liberal idiots like you elect liberal idiots like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. One doesn't understand the first thing about fire management and the other one can't fill the water reserves. Yeah, I think that's our problem for the massive amount of damage because, yeah, these fires have always happened to a certain degree in this time of year for a long time, especially since they stopped doing the controlled burns back in the 70s. But it's one of them situations where, yeah, this is part of nature, but you have ways to deal with this. You have ways to mitigate it. If you, it's just like I live in the South. On the Gulf Coast out there, right? On the American coast, on the coast of America. And it's one of them situations where it's like, we know that when hurricane season's coming. Why? Because it happens at the same time every year. It's like history doesn't just repeat itself. It also rhymes, right? So what do? You stock up on water. You do all these other kind of things. If you know you have a fire season in Southern California, then why aren't you prepared? Oh, that's right. We're going to get into all of that. Diversity, inclusion, and equity. But of course, right here, LA Mayor Karen Bass cut fire department funding by a 17.6 million months before the wildfires turned city into a hellscape. Yeah, that's always a good idea now, isn't it? The most important task ahead is not to be bitter, but yeah, they literally did this. And here, of course, is your LA fire chief. Now, if you go down to her little profile picture over here, you'll see her own little personal edict on the Los Angeles Fire Department website. Well, what are her priorities? Are her priorities preparing for these fires that seem to happen every single year? Is she prepared for doing all that kind of stuff? No. Her priorities are creating and supporting and promoting a culture that values diversity, inclusion, and equity. Oh, where have we heard that before? It's almost like the same spirit of the age infects everything, whether it's video games and movies, and when they concentrate on this, other bad things happen. I mean, this is way worse than a broken and buggy, glitchy Star Wars Outlaws game from Ubisoft. No. This is what happens when you apply this stuff to things outside of the entertainment industry. People die! While striving to meet and exceed the expectations of the communities are Chief Crowley's priorities. And she's grateful for the opportunity to serve the city of Los Angeles. And then, of course, if for some reason you missed the headline, there was one of the LGBTQ alphabet soup mafia cult news organization, quote unquote, news organizations out there that said, oh, the first LGBT fire chief and how they're battling back against the fires of LA. And they're doing such a great job of it. Yeah, okay. And as James Woods so properly points out, priorities stated in her bio below. Refilling the water reserves would have been a welcome priority too, but I guess she had too much time on her plate promoting diversity. Oh, yes, indeed. And it's one of them situations, we already talked about this part of it as well, and it's just over and over the exact same kind of stuff. And of course, Gavin Newsom is using this as an excuse to be political and all that other kind of nonsense. Climate change. And of course, like I said, it's not just one Hollywood celebrity, it's more than one out there, including our dear sweet Chris Gore, because he is a Hollywood celebrity. Don't let him tell you otherwise. Shazam actor Zachery Levi says Gavin Newsom's responsible to LA fire is criminally negligent. So he was on a little report over there with Fox News. And so he goes, I'm in Austin, Texas. And I'm watching the news. It looks like I'm watching a post-apocalyptic war film. It's so sad. And ultimately, why have we ended up in this place? This is just incredible mismanagement, incredibly poor leadership. I would go so far as to say that it is criminally negligent because, I mean, Gavin Newsom has either been the governor for 5 years or lieutenant governor prior to that for 8 or 9 years. Some of the worst fires we've ever had in California under that watch. He clearly knows the biggest problem that we suffer from in California are these fires. And by the way, the mudslides that follow, because you burn up all the vegetation, guess what? There ain't nothing to hold the soil together. And for them to do essentially not just do nothing, but worse than nothing. When firefighters' budgets are being cut, when they are specifically, intentionally not doing the work that could be done to avoid these problems, or to be able to effectively serve them when they are happening. Yeah, cutting almost $20 million out of your firefighter budget wasn't probably a very good deal, now was it, Mayor? We are losing. I mean, I think it's something like millions of acres of feet of water run off from rain and snow every year in California. As you pointed out, I think the smelt has something to do with that. An acre foot of water, by the way, is about 330 gallons of water. And there's millions of these that are just rolling off into the ocean when they could have been captured in cisterns. We have an ecosystem of hoses and safety measures that can keep all of these homes and people in these homes safe. And for some reason, they chose not to do none of it. And shout out to Zachery Levi, making sure he's educated on all this kind of stuff and actually speaking the proper facts and all of the kind of stuff out there. Like, this is cool. And at some point, it goes beyond just whoopsie. At some point, it goes beyond negligence. This is something that's the most almost criminally intentional about this. What are they doing? I don't know. And he's right. That's what I think everybody out there in Los Angeles is asking. And I think pretty much everybody around the world who's seeing this thing is asking the exact same thing. What are you doing? Why haven't you done more about this? You've known this has been a problem. You have been called out for these fires and not managing your brush properly and not being proper stewards of the beautiful land that is California. You have been called out for this over and over and over again. And it's the same BS excuse. Well, it's just climate change. There's nothing we can do about it. Oh, so wait a minute. You think we can cure man-made climate change, allegedly man-made climate change, by capping carbon, but you don't think you can prevent fires by, I don't know, using the Native American techniques by doing either controlled burns or, I don't know, just cleaning up around your brush? I mean, literally just throwing leaves and sticks away. Like, this isn't rocket science, boys and girls. That stuff is just nothing more than tinder for a fire, tinder for a fire. Like, anybody that's ever gone out in the woods and made a fire from little bits of tinder, that's what you use. Use leaves and little sticks and little twigs and all that kind of stuff. It's literally called a tinder box for a reason. This is so stupid. So, but Levi's not done with him yet. I don't know if there's criminal intent. I have no idea what they're doing or not doing the things that they are doing, but they must be held responsible. This is not good leadership. Listen, if this is the man who are in the middle of the pandemic, when people are being locked up for going and gathering together, he was at the front laundry having dinner with his friends, what does that say about the character of this man who is doing nothing to help the people of California? I don't believe that he is. I don't believe that he is. And so I think there needs to be some kind of accountability. And there has to be leadership, not just of California, but also of our nation. Listen, if there are people who still in Northern California that are still climbing out of the rubble of the hurricane, North Carolina, climbing out of the rubble of a hurricane in Florida and North Carolina and South Carolina, that's still happening. And FEMA completely dropping the ball there. What's going to happen now with Southern California? Is FEMA going to be there? By the way, one of the things that's almost criminal of all of this, I don't know if you know this, but like 70% or so of the insured in Southern California that used to have fire insurance in their home months ago, this insurance was taken away. The insurance company said, we're not going to offer fire insurance anymore. They don't need flood insurance. They need fire insurance. There is a fire hazard. Of course, that's the insurance they need, they want. And just months ago, this was stripped from people. That's not okay. And it's not okay in any way, shape, or form, he concluded. And one of the things that he doesn't point out in that little rant, and this is a good friend of ours, Brahma Bull, a good friend of the channel and a friend of the fellowship, been around for a long time. He works in the insurance industry out there. And the problem, what it was, it ended up coming down to California's government regulations forced these insurance companies to not be able to compete inside of the state and actually be able to provide insurance to these people because of all of the crazy regulations. They were trying to raise the rates because guess what? These fires continue to happen over and over again every single year, and they just seem to get worse and worse and worse. So it costs the insurance companies even more money. And if the state isn't allowing you to raise the insurance rates, well, then what are you going to do? You have to pull out. You can't keep operating in a loss inside of a state. And that's because of the over government regulations. And that's what all of this comes down to. That's why James Wood and Zachery Levi are calling him out for this, because this is what it is between the mayor and Governor Newsom, especially having these same problems year after year, getting called out, being told all of the solutions, but all because they come from the big orange man out there. You can't do that. It has to be mocked and ridiculed and yada, yada, yada. And we just have to let nature do its thing. Well, guess what? Nature is doing its thing. If you don't clean out your underbrush, trust me, God will take care of it for you. And that's exactly what this ends up happening. This is the natural cycle of what happens when things aren't properly managed by human beings, who we are charged with by God to be good stewards of our land. And that includes Southern California and making sure it doesn't just turn into some crazy tinderbox every time around this time of year. It's absolutely insane. There are solutions out there, and Governor Gavin Newsom absolutely refuses to do any of those things. And guess what? He's going to continue getting called out for it by absolutely everyone, including the Hollywood celebrities, and it's exactly what he deserves. And sadly, from what he's done, a lot of the people out there in California are suffering as well. And at the end of the day, you need to hold your leadership accountable, and you need to make sure that they never forget what they have done to you and all of the losses that these people have had for years and years and years. Governor Gavin Newsom, you are clearly an evil or incompetent man, and at the end of the day, considering you're a politician, probably a bit of both.